YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after most of the games of NFL Week 8. Still one more to go. Bucks versus Giants, an absolute thriller is what we all expect here. But Overreaction Monday, reacting to some overreactions from NFL Week 8 sent in by you guys through our Twitter. You're going to want to follow that Twitter. Constant NFL action all over that Twitter. Anytime news breaks, we talk about it, we discuss it, give you my thoughts, even during live games, always talking football. And that's how you guys get involved in videos like this. Instagram, podcast, Patreon, a lot going on here. You can find links in the description and the comments for anything you need. 60K, that's our subscriber goal. We're almost there. Appreciate the support. Full NFL coverage. We got you covered through the NFL trade deadline here. Almost here. We got a bunch of videos on the channel, some grades on the channel, more grades to come if the big deals happen. To the Patreon. Lots of extra content there. We got score predictions, bets of the week on NFL, college football, updated playoff predictions every week. Yeah, a lot going on there as well. But let's get on to the video. Let's take a look at some of these overreactions sent in by you guys. From Nicholas, Niners playoff chances go to 0 after that loss and the Kittle and Garoppolo injuries. So, tough loss to the Seahawks. Also suffered some more injuries, and now coming out just a little bit ago, that Kittle's going to miss 8 weeks and Garoppolo's going to miss 6 weeks. Now, that 8 weeks for Kittle might mean the season. That means he probably can play one game. Maybe he's ahead of schedule. Maybe he plays 2 or 3. I don't really see any difference there or anything more than that. But then Garoppolo out 6 weeks. It's a pretty good one, too, because everyone's wondering the same thing. The Niners were starting to heat up. I'd say it's an overreaction because I don't think it goes to 0. I don't think you can write them off. And why I say that, I mean, it's unlikely that they go to the playoffs. It's unlikely they'll be that much of a threat. But the reason it's an overreaction is because this team doesn't really win off its talent, it feels like, or off its quarterback play. I know losing Kittle's pretty big. And obviously they're better with Garoppolo over Mullins or Beathard. But it's a team that wins, I think because their game plan and their coaching, and they got a lot of guys that just play real hard. They play tough. They play hard football, and I think that's how they win games. They just out physical teams, So then that's my opinion there. But so I can't. I think they can sneak up on some teams, win some games still, but it's going to be unlikely. But I think it's an overreaction to call it 0. But it's some tough blows for the 49ers there. Next from Joe Vina. A lot of Packers ones this week that I like. The Packers still made a bad choice by choosing Jordan Love. That's who they drafted in the first round, the Utah State quarterback. They should have got T. Higgins or Patrick Queen. It's an interesting one that's popping up now. Now that nobody was really talking about it. People were talking about it in the offseason, questionable draft picks. And then the Packers start winning. They're looking really good in the beginning of the year. So people are starting to forget. Now they lost a disappointing game, second loss of the year, a game you expect them to win. So now it's kind of being brought back up again. Understandable, I suppose. But this is an interesting one too. I'm gonna call this. I kind of got a two-parter here, but for this statement, I'm gonna call it an overreaction. It's tough that Jordan Love's kind of the third string quarterback, and you see you don't hear the best things from camp this year, but there wasn't much of camp, But you can't really judge them off the Jordan Love pick. I think right now, I think the kid's got a ton of upside. It's a perfect situation to learn behind Rodgers, and he could work out. I think he's got a future. But it's kind of to be determined here. I don't know if you can judge them on this pick. You definitely could say. I think it's a fact that they could have helped what T. Higgins or Patrick Queen. They could have helped themselves more right now when they're trying to win. So you can definitely say that, but that doesn't mean Jordan Love pick was kind of a fail or bad choice. Well, the second part of this, I will knock them on that second round pick. I did not like that pick. I think they overdrafted A.J. Dillon, and you drafted another third stringer there. Kind of going back to the first pick, you look at Patrick Queen's balling out for the Ravens. He's in a different scheme, a different system. Well, they both run a 3-4, but it's a different system. I think where he's kind of using the blitz game a lot on the Ravens. It would be a different situation on the Green Bay Packers. So he may not be as good. On the Packers. We really don't know. They definitely could have used a receiver. I think that's where they went wrong in the second round. You see teams hit on guys like, Chase Claypool in the second. I mean, there's plenty of them. We can go all day. So that's where I'll rip them a little bit, but I don't think you can really judge them fully on the Jordan Love pick. It's kind of to be determined. But the fact that they were kind of a win now team, their window might be closing a little bit, and they kind of went for future. You could knock them a little bit on that, but it's definitely an interesting debate. Ahmad Salam here. The Packers will miss out the playoffs. Go Pack, go. So this is another overreaction. I think they're still a good team, still a contender. They're pretty good against kind of against kind of the field or who they have left to play. There's more teams in there better than a good amount more than they're not as good against. If you get what I'm saying there. Disappointing loss against the Vikings, so people are bringing it up. Maybe the Packers are pretending. Maybe they're not that good. And honestly, a game like that raises some questions, some red flags, I suppose. So I'm actually not really anywhere near. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not as high on them as I was maybe a week ago. So yeah, maybe our thoughts on the Packers rightfully have come down a little bit. But to say, I think it would be extreme to say, to take them from up here to way down here. You're like, they're not making the playoffs. Maybe they're a borderline playoff team. I think any of that would be an overreaction. A little bit of a fluky game, I suppose. Dalvin Cook, I guess his performance, that's not a fluke. But, the rest of it, I don't know. It's tough to say what happened really with the offense. In that game, I guess they doubled up Devontae Adams, but they had some injuries, but it's just tough to say specifically what went wrong for that offense in that game. So there's some concerns. When they lose to a team like the Bucs, a really good team, it's just a mismatch problem, a matchup issue. Understandable. What is this? What happened this week? Is that going to pop up in a playoff game or when they're trying to clinch the NFC North? Going against the Bears, that's going to pop up again. So it makes you think a bit, and maybe it does. Maybe it has you come down on your thoughts on the Packers a little bit. But I think it'd be an overreaction to say, miss out the playoffs or borderline playoff team. They should be much better than that still in people's views. But who knows? One more Packers one. Ryan Pollock. No trade can help the Packers. They need to fire Mike Pettin and find a better defense coordinator. So I see a lot of people getting on Mike Pettin. A lot of this. Especially after a game like that, Dalvin Cook running wild. The Vikings didn't really need to throw the ball to win the game, which is pretty mind-blowing. And the Packers are kind of in the trade market. They're brought up in a lot of discussions at the trade deadline. Could they trade? And there's some discussion about offensive players, receiver, tight end. Maybe that's unlikely, but maybe. But then you look at the defense. D-line help, inside linebacker help. So is that what they need, or do they need to change at the defense coordinator position? It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I'd say I'm another overreaction. I think I'm going with here. It's tough to say. When guys are kind of out of position, players out of position, maybe you blame the coach there a bit. But I think they need better players in those spots. They continue to not get. Enough talent, good enough talent. The inside linebacker position, the D-line position around Kenny Clark, the talent just isn't there. There's plenty of backups in the league that would start in those spots. When you got a late round rookie out of Minnesota might be your best inside linebacker, you got a problem. You got a problem. And there's guys just making terrible. I mean, I brought it up in the recap video too. It's not like they're making bad reads. That's what you call it, but it's not like the Vikings were doing anything, wild. It's just a simple handoff, and they're filling the wrong gaps. They're taking on blocks when they can easily avoid them. It's a player problem, I think. And you can blame the coaches if guys are not in the right spot, getting in the right spot. You can blame them, but I just don't think the talent's there. It's one thing if they're like better on paper. They're better on paper. In some spots, they're great on paper on defense, but. And they're just not getting the job done, but it's just not that. I don't think they went out and got their talent. So I'm not going to blame Mike Pettin here. I think you could call, if you want to say maybe he's on the hot seat. Yeah, sure. I think that's fine. But they got to get the talent. In terms of the trade, could the trade help them? Could improve them a little bit. It's not going to be a major difference. I think it's easier. I'm kind of back and forth on this with the trade. I actually think... Yeah, the stopping the run, inside linebacker, D-line help is probably more important than receiver. But which one is going to make more of a difference, honestly? Because if you add Denzel Perryman, an inside linebacker, if you add, I don't know if there's that many defensive linemen available at the moment. If you add, maybe Leonard Williams, I haven't heard much on him, but those could be some pretty solid, additions. But is it really going to, how much is it going to change going against a good run team? Is it going to change that much? If you had a receiver like they're in talks about Will Fuller, I don't know if the Texans would really be willing to get rid of him, maybe for the right price. But if you had a Will Fuller, that boosts the offense quite a bit. So it's a pretty debatable. I think the defensive part might be more of a need, but which one's going to make more of an impact halfway through the season? We're halfway through the season already, so it might be the receiver part. I don't know. Speaking of the Vikings, from Aiden Weingartner here, the Vikings can still make the playoffs. It's another tough one, actually, but it's an interesting topic because they just came off a surprising win against a really good team, and people were like, oh, maybe, kind of look back at their other games. They probably should have they definitely should have beat the Seahawks, probably should have beat the Titans, and then that would mean they would have 4 wins. So maybe they're better than we think. People are kind of thinking that. Can they make the playoffs? I think some people are thinking that. And technically they can. I think it's a lot of overreactions. Right? We don't call it Overreaction Monday for nothing. I think it's an overreaction. Technically they can. I think they rely on Dalvin Cook too much. I think he won them that game, and he'll probably win them quite a few games. And Kirk, don't get me wrong. Kirk can go out and help them win games and stuff, but that's not going to happen every week. And what they're putting on the field on defense, they played well, but I don't think that's going to happen every week. On top of that, they're just too inconsistent. See that Falcons game? They just got destroyed in that Falcons game. How does that happen? It's because of the Vikings. That's what their team is right now. Coaching-wise, player-wise, maybe it's because of injuries. It could be a legitimate excuse. It's a legitimate excuse for a lot of teams, though, not just them. So I think they're too inconsistent, and I think they rely on certain things to happen. Even the upcoming game against the Lions, I don't know who I'm picking yet in that game because the Lions have quite a few injuries now. But the Lions start off very well. I'm kind of going off topic a little bit, but no, it goes to the point. The Lions start off really well in games. They're usually up. I think they're up every game. So if the Vikings aren't really a come from behind team, they got to rely on being able to run the ball a bit. And if the situation like that happens, they're probably not going to win those games. But maybe they can because the Lions are beat up now. But my point is those games will pop up. That's just one example. So I just don't know if they're consistent enough. To make the playoffs. I just really don't think they are. From Jackson Rosenthal, the Bengals can still make the playoffs. And, another team, they probably, it feels like they're better on their record. They might have more, they should have more wins than what they actually have. It's probably true. They're a sneaky team. They got a really good offense. Defense, I think, could and should be getting better. And technically they can. Perhaps, but I think it's an overreaction because I don't think they're consistent enough. And whether it's the coaching, whether it's the team, it's too young. They've blown leads. They've kind of blown games they should have won. That will still pop up. Beating a really good team like the Titans, that could pop up too again. It can keep popping up here and there, but just not consistent enough. And looking at the division and the AFC in general, I think it'd be an overreaction to think that they technically they can still do it, but to think it's a decent chance maybe would be an overreaction. Evan Reese, the Ravens' passing game is not good. Yeah, so everyone's kind of ripping the Ravens and Lamar on that because they just haven't been able to throw the ball nearly as good as they were last year. The turnovers pop up as well, just not very successful at all. We're gonna go overreaction Monday here. We're going overreaction again. It's nowhere near as good as it was last year. I'm not ready to call it or label it not good. It's just not good. I'm not really ready to label it that. Especially off a Steelers game, it's the best defense in football. They got to be better. Lamar has to be much better. They can't make those mistakes. Receivers got to do a better job getting open as well, but mainly on Lamar after looking at that Steelers game. I'm just not ready to say it's not good. It's definitely not great. It was great last year. It's definitely not great. But it's something we got to monitor. It's something we're going to continue to look at. If this keeps up, they're playing a good Colts defense. If this keeps up, maybe we're on to something here. I don't know. But it's they're going to have to pick it up if they want to contend. SC10 Chargers need to clean house. And it's kind of I'm going to say fact. I'm just going to say fact. So we're really going from one extreme to another with all these overreactions. Now fact. I'm going to say they do. You can't just continue to blow these games, and this just continues to happen. Enough's enough at this point. Enough's enough. And cleaning house means pretty much everybody there in the coaching staff, unless you mean front office as well. But I think we're all just talking about the coaching staff. And Gus Bradley, who I think is a good defensive mind, but even at this point with him, I'm fine with. The defense has been disappointing the last couple weeks, so I'm okay with moving on. You just can't continue to. It's a group effort blowing these leads. You can't continue to let it happen. It's tough though. It's not as simple as just, all right, we're blowing it. Let's just fire these guys. Because Herbert's looking pretty good. He's looking pretty good. I don't want, they don't want to kind of just stunt his growth or anything. Just switching coaches all of a sudden. If we're talking at the end of this year, yeah, most definitely. But I almost think, you gotta, this just can't continue to happen. But it's not a season that's really going anywhere. So, why, it doesn't hurt to keep them, but they deserve to be fired. They all deserve to be fired right now. But it's not that simple. Like I said, do you want to hurt the young guy's growth here by making this change? And, you're going to have to at the end of the year. You're going to have to. So we'll see. Another classic Chargers blown comeback there. Trusty number true. Mitch Trubisky should regain his position as starting quarterback after consecutive underwhelming performances from Nick Foles. Yeah, that's a tough one too. Because Nick Foles has been pretty underwhelming. I do put, as well as a lot of people, I think, put a lot of blame on Nagy as well. And maybe that goes for the Trubisky underwhelming performance as well. We could put those on Nagy too. We're starting to learn that, you think there'll be some kind of change with the change of quarterback in terms of play calls and how things are run, but they're really not. So maybe it was Nagy all along. Makes you wonder, but it's a tough one here. But I think it's fair to think this. I can debate this all day, kind of both sides, back and forth, but it's fair to think this. I don't know if it's right, playing musical chord, going back and forth and back and forth. That's gonna kill you, And Foles, hasn't really been that much time for him to develop. Yeah, you wish there was a little more, but it's not like he got to start week one. It's like there was not like a normal offseason, so maybe they think he needs more time, and it's understandable if you think that. I suppose. For me, I think the downfield plays is the difference. You look at a game like the Saints. Nick Foles he had an interception that was downfield, but other than that, like 7 for 10 downfield. If you're looking deep downfield, he was actually pretty successful, and that's when the Bears led to scores. And I think there's actually single games where Foles has more attempts even than Trubisky did in his slate of his games this year. So. Is that Trubisky not wanting to throw downfield? I feel like he's kind of been proven to be inaccurate downfield as well. Or is that not Nagy not letting him? That could be the case as well. Just calling those plays to really not get the ball downfield. He's still not doing it enough for Foles because, like I said, they were every time they went Allen Robinson, Mooney downfield, I thought they were pretty successful. And the stats say so as well. And that's how you beat the Saints, and it was working, and they kind of went away from that. So, in terms of downfield, it's Nick Foles. It's no question. It's Nick Foles. But the side for Trubisky, maybe you're losing some momentum. You kind of get the switch, gain some momentum back. But I think switching back and forth could be the argument against that. Offensive line's a little beat up. Their offensive line didn't play as bad as I thought they would against the Saints. Yeah, there was some big time pressure and sacks, but it wasn't like nonstop or anything close to that. But Trubisky has the ability to escape that a little better and run. There's plays I hear people talking about. If we go back and Trubisky probably would have got that first because he would have ran. And there's plays though, those big plays downfield that unlikely that Trubisky would have got. Maybe he could have got some of them, but I think there's. Based on the sample size of what we've seen, I think there's a big difference. And that doesn't really mean Foles is good throwing downfield. I thought he was good in the game yesterday, but Trubisky's kind of been proven not, I think a couple show up here and there, and then people kind of get excited, but it never really, it's never really changed or improved in that category. So it's tough. It's tough. And you can go all day on this. You can debate that maybe they don't need the downfield shots. I could debate that they do. I think every team does. But a game like the Titans, that's what I want to talk about. The game like the Titans coming up this week, teams are getting a lot of yards and they're having a lot of success in the Titans defense because they're getting the ball out quick. There's guys getting open right off the bat. And I don't know if there's that much of a difference between Trubisky and Foles in that category, but I think Trubisky's ability, if you want to run quick plays, I think having a guy that can roll out a little better, if one guy's not open, be able to roll out and throw on the sideline. Trubisky might be the better option for that. So you could debate that Trubisky could be the better option against the Titans. So, but do you really want to play this by week? So, I mean, you can debate both sides, argue both sides here. It's a tough, tricky situation they're in. I'm blaming more Nagy at this point, for both quarterbacks' underwhelming performances based on what I've seen. But we'll see what they do. Future looking bright. The Miami Dolphins have a top 3 defense in the league. We're gonna go with a little overlooked action. I think I'm not really saying they do by this, but I think not enough people are maybe people are starting to realize that now. But I definitely think they should be considered up there. I mean, this is a fun defense. They're unique. They're tough to game plan against. You don't know what they're throwing at you. With their different disguises. I mean, they got talent everywhere too. There's talent across the D-line. There's guys that kind of been hot and cold, across, in their career so far, and they're playing at their best level right now. Brian Flores got them playing at their best level. And then you got guys like Kyle Van Noy, Jerome Baker, playing outstanding football. Their corner groups obviously playing as expected, playing some really good football. And that's helping the guys we really weren't sure about. Can they be good consistently? They're playing great. I mean, they go out there and just dominate the Rams. They win that game purely off defense. Just so impressive. They're able to do that against the Niners. Seems like they're doing it pretty consistently. So I think you got the Steelers. I mean, let me rattle off some teams. You got the Steelers on the top of my head: Steelers, Bucks, Bears, Dolphins, Rams, Ravens. I think they're definitely in the conversation with those teams there, so I'd say that's kind of overlooked. They very well might be. It's not really, it's one of those defenses where it's tough to say they're the best. It's going to be tough for a lot of us to be like, okay, Dolphins have the best defense, very possible. But at the same time, it's one of those defenses where I don't want to play them. I would rather play a defense that we might call better, but it's easier to game plan against. Like, I don't know what these guys are going to do. I don't know who's rushing. Like, Van Noy rushing? I don't know. Sometimes it's just like that. It's one of those situations, like almost like there are several quarterbacks, maybe not several right this year, but there's a good amount of quarterbacks better than a guy like Kyler Murray on the Cardinals. But I might rather play a better quarterback than that. I don't want to play against that. It's like kind of one of those situations. So overlooked thing there. Dolphins got themselves the defense. From Carter, Goff is losing games for the Rams. They need to address the QB situation in the offseason. This is an interesting one because. Man, I don't want to say fact. I'm going to say fair. I don't want to say fact. Yeah, that might be a little bold to say fact, but I'm almost thinking it because this is this actually the rest of the team is better than I thought. Based on what they've shown me. Bold move getting rid of Wade Phillips. And the defense looks like it's balling out. They got it's good on paper, but it's better than that. And they're consistently good. It's a likable defense. I like this defense. In offense, they got the playmakers. They got the playmaker. On the field, receiver position, the running back position, even showing up. Guys like Darrell Henderson could play. Offensive line might be playing better than expected. They didn't play so hot against the Dolphins. A good pass rush, but they're playing better than expected. But Goff's just not getting the job done, and those interceptions are on him. Like, he's pretty much just throwing it up. 50-50 balls, maybe not even that, and so you just can't throw the ball in that situation. So there's panic to his game. There is, he's just missing open throws. There's just, I don't know. They got to be on the lookout for a quarterback still. They still have to do their homework. It's tough because it's going to be tough for them to believe we can just throw a rookie in here and be better. They just got a taste of that Super Bowl. They were just there. So if we're like, do we want to draft a quarterback right now when we can get better elsewhere? It's going to be tough. But thinking about, it depends on where they're going to be picking, but thinking about, they could get better with it. It's crazy to think about, but they could get better with a rookie quarterback even because I think the rest of the team is playing better than expected. He's kind of holding them back. So that's my take on that. It's weird, though. It's weird to think about. Sheep, time for Hurts to start in Philly. And this is another one, too. Another one I'm kind of back and forth on, really. That's one I can debate with myself. I literally can play both sides of myself. I don't even know what to answer for this because you obviously can't bench Wentz right now when you're winning. And he's made the big plays at the end of games. You look at the Giants game, he's made that. So you obviously you can't bench Wentz right now. That's pretty clear. But you draft Hurts in the second round. Why? Because you think he's good. You think he's pretty solid. But you really don't know for sure, until you play him. And future quarterback could be a question right now. And they might have a better pick than expected. So you got to keep all options open. You always got to scout the quarterbacks, even though when you don't think you need one. But I think you have to know for sure. So it just. And Wentz is making some bad mistakes, but is Hurts going to be any better? I wasn't really high on him at Oklahoma. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I think I don't know. I don't even know what to say for this one. I think you draft him that early. You draft him in the second round. You obviously think he can play. You obviously think he's good. But I just want to know what their thinking is. Do they think that are they believing that Wentz is the future? Because he's making mistakes that really aren't going to go away. And he could be better. They might be a playoff team as it is, but they can be like an actual playoff team, feel like a playoff team. But are they going to win anything major with that again? Are they going to be able to do it? So that's kind of the question. Do they need to be looking out for a quarterback? I can answer this multiple ways. I'm calling it overreaction just because you can't bench Wentz right now. From winning, but it's a really tough one. Like I said, I can debate both sides. It's almost like I think Tua had to go in because they believe in him, they like Tua, but they want to see, can he do it? Is he the same after the injuries? Can he stay healthy? Because we're about to have 2 first-round picks. Do we need to take a quarterback? And people will disagree. People will say they don't think that, but they don't actually, think that they need to take a quarterback. But it's in the back of their mind that maybe you got to keep options open. You're not going to be great if you don't think like that. So the Eagles, are they thinking the same thing? Do we need to see if Hurts is can he play? Do we need a quarterback? Are we rolling with Wentz? I don't know what they're thinking. It's hard to think about that. From D-Man, the Pats dynasty is officially over. I pray, LOL. It looks like it might be coming to an end here, but it's another tough one to answer. It's another tough one to answer. I'm just gonna say fair. It's gonna be tough. No Brady, no GOAT there. A lot of guys gone. They're gonna get guys back opting back in after the guys opted out. Gonna be back next year, so they'll probably be better. It's an organization that players want to play for, and it's a coaching staff that can turn it around just like that. So they can be back in no time, but it's definitely fair to think that. It's nowhere near the same. The team was starting to decline last year. People thought Brady wasn't playing as good, and maybe statistically he wasn't, but I was trying to tell people he was kind of holding up. The team in general really wasn't that good as it compared to what it used to be. So it feels like it definitely is going south. Seahawks Galaxy. Seahawks defense will be top 10 defense at the end of the year with everyone back and healthy. So they had a really strong performance against the 49ers. Really impressive performance, by far their best of the year. And that's without Jamal Adams. They can get Jamal Adams, who's arguably the best safety back. They're going to get Carlos Dunlap back in there. Now they're starting to get, blitz Bobby Wagner, and that worked out. Some other young guys are starting to play better. The interior guys are playing better. So they very well might be getting better. I'm going to call this an overreaction. Now top 10's a little much. But I do think they'll be better than what we've seen by the end of the year. Maybe a good amount better. They're still going to have those weeks where it looks pretty bad. Maybe they give up quite a bit, but they'll be better for sure. So I think that's mainly his point here. But yeah, top 10's a bit much. But honestly, it's not saying much to get in the top 10. It's not that much of a task. There's not that many great defenses. It's a way different league right now. It's a way different league than when it used to be. So pretty wild to think about that, but yeah, I think they'll get better. I think they're already getting better. I think they'll get better, but they'll still have those moments where they're not so hot. But we'll see. Need Jamal Adams back out there. Can't wait to see what Dunlap has. They might not be done with the trade deadline, and that's coming up tomorrow. There, we have you covered for that already. A bunch of videos on the trade deadline on the channel. Plenty more to come here. Covering it on the Twitter as well as live games. So check that out. And then yeah. Just please subscribe to the channel. Full NFL coverage here. Smash that like button if you enjoy. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.